The boy's scream cut through the cabin like a blade. It rose and fell without rhythm, raw and endless, filling the narrow space with fear. Heads turned. Hands tightened on armrests. A mother pressed her palm to her mouth. The plane had not even leveled yet, and already panic crawled along the aisle. The boy was small, red-faced, shaking, strapped into a seat that looked far too tight for his fear. His father stood over him, tall and polished, voice sharp, pride louder than concern. He demanded space. He demanded silence. He demanded respect. He had money, and everyone could feel it in the way he stood, in the watch that caught the light, in the way the crew hesitated. The screaming only grew. Near the back of the plane, a young girl sat alone by the window. She was quiet, still hands folded on her lap. Her clothes were simple and worn at the edges. Her skin glowed softly under the cabin lights, deep and warm, like polished wood. She was poor by every visible measure, and she was used to being unseen. She lifted her head. The plane seemed to hold its breath. She did not rush. She did not ask for permission. She stood slowly, steadying herself against the seat in front of her, and took one step into the aisle. A flight attendant noticed and moved to block her eyes, tired, voice low, asking her to return to her seat. The girl did not answer. She kept walking. People watched, unsure why this quiet child felt different from the others who had already tried and failed. The father scoffed. He waved her away without looking. He said she should sit down. He said his son needed real help. The girl stopped, rose away. She closed her eyes for a moment, breathing in the recycled air, the scent of metal and coffee and fear. When she opened them, her face was calm. Not brave. Calm. The kind of calm that comes from knowing storms. The boy's scream cracked and broke into sobs, and then the girl stepped closer. She had learned to be still a long time ago. Stillness had kept her safe when noise made things worse. She had learned it in places where walls were thin and voices were loud. She had learned it beside hospital beds and empty chairs. She had learned it from watching her mother breathe through pain and smile anyway. Her name was Asha. She was 14 years old. Her father had once worn a uniform that smelled of dust and sun and iron. He had left home before dawn and returned after dark, carrying stories he never told and scars he never showed. He taught her how to listen without interrupting, how to speak without raising her voice, how to see fear behind anger. He said the loudest people were often the most afraid. He did not come back from his last assignment. Asha remembered the knock on the door. She remembered the words delivered with care. She remembered her mother's knees giving way, the sound of the floor, the silence after. She remembered the folded flag, crisp and heavy, placed into her mother's shaking hands. After that, life narrowed. Money ran out. The house changed. Smells changed. Meals grew smaller. The world grew louder. People looked through them instead of at them. Teachers spoke slower. Clerks watched closer. Kindness came with conditions. Asha learned to move quietly through crowded places. She learned to take up less space. She learned to read faces the way some people read books. She learned when to step forward and when to disappear. She had learned how fear sounded. The boy's fear sounded like drowning. The father's voice cut through the air again, sharp and brittle. He told the crew to do something. He told the boy to stop. He told the cabin that his family deserved peace. His words bounced off the walls and fell back on him. No one moved. The girl took another step. The flight attendant hesitated, torn between rules and relief. Something in the girl's posture, the way she carried herself, slowed the protest. The aisle opened. Asha knelt beside the boy's seat. She did not touch him. She did not speak at first. She lowered herself to his level and waited. The boy's eyes were wide and unfocused. Tears soaked his cheeks. His hands clawed at the straps. He was not screaming at anyone. He was screaming at the sky, at the metal cage around him, at the feeling of falling without falling. Asha breathed slowly, deeply, letting the rhythm show. She placed her own hand on her chest, fingers spread, and matched her breath to a count she knew by heart. The boy saw it. His scream faltered, caught, rose again, then broke into gasps. Asha finally spoke, her voice low and even, carrying only as far as it needed to. She said she was right there. She said the plane was strong. She said the sky was wide but kind. She said breathing could be shared. The father snapped that she should not talk to his son. Asha did not look up. She kept her eyes on the boy and her breath steady. The boy's hands loosened. His cries softened into hiccups. His chest began to rise and fall in uneven but slowing waves. Each breath borrowed courage from the girl kneeling. Beside him, the cabin grew quiet. Not silent. Quiet. The kind that feels fragile and precious. People shifted in their seats. Someone wiped their eyes. Someone else held their phone, forgotten, screen dark. The father stood frozen, words stuck behind his teeth. Asha reached into her pocket and pulled out a small object, worn smooth by time. It was a coin, dull and scratched, with a hole near the edge. She held it up between her fingers, letting the light catch it. She told the boy to watch the coin. She told him to imagine it was an anchor. She told him anchors do not stop storms, but they keep ships from drifting too far. The boy nodded. He watched, his breathing slowed. His body softened. The screaming ended as suddenly as it had begun. The plane exhaled. Asha stayed where she was, grounding the moment, not rushing the calm. She waited until the boy's eyes focused fully, until his hands rested, until his shoulders dropped. Then she stood. She nodded once to the flight attendant and turned to return to her seat. Applause did not come. Cheers did not rise. No one wanted to break the spell, but something had shifted. The father cleared his throat. He said, "Thank you," stiff and uncertain, the words heavy in his mouth. He did not meet her eyes. Asha kept walking. The rest of the flight passed in a strange peace. The boy slept, clutching the coin. The father sat quietly, staring at the seat in front of him, his reflection faint in the screen. The crew moved with lighter steps. Asha sat by the window, watching clouds drift like slow thoughts. Her hands rested on her lap again. Her heart beat steadily, though a tremor ran through her fingers now that the moment had passed. She felt eyes on her, not judging. Wondering when the plane began its descent, the captain's voice filled the cabin, calm and warm. He spoke of weather and time and thanks. Then he paused. He said he wanted to recognize an act of courage and kindness. He said sometimes heroes do not wear uniforms or titles. He said sometimes they sit quietly until they are needed. He did not name her. He did not need to. Heads turned. Eyes found her. A few people nodded. One woman pressed her hand to her heart. A man in a suit wiped his face and looked away. The father stood as the plane reached the gate. He waited until Asha passed. He stepped aside and lowered his head, just slightly. He said her name, having asked the crew. He said his son would remember her. Asha nodded back, simple and steady. She stepped into the aisle and walked forward, carrying nothing but herself. Later in the terminal, a woman approached Asha and her mother, who had been seated, rose away, unaware of everything until it ended. The woman introduced herself as a nurse. She said she had seen fear in many forms. She said what Asha had done was rare. Asha's mother listened, eyes shining, pride and worry mixing in her chest. She thanked the woman and took Asha's hand as they walked toward the exit. Asha felt the familiar weight of the world settle back onto her shoulders. Bills waited. Work waited. Life waited. But something else waited too. Respect not given loudly. Not handed freely. Earned quietly. Felt deeply. Asha squeezed her mother's hand and kept walking. There are moments when power shouts and still loses. There are moments when silence steps forward and wins. That day, at 30,000 feet, a girl without money, without status, without armor, reminded a crowded plane of something simple and true. Fear listens to calm. Strength does not always announce itself, and sometimes the smallest voice carries the greatest peace. If this story moved you, share where you are watching from. Tell us what silent strength means to you. and subscribe for more stories that honor the heroes we almost miss.